But on the eve of, Jimmy, on the eve of breaking news out of Parramatta, talk us through that. You broke it on the Fox Sports website this afternoon.
Yeah, look, there's no way to sugarcoat this, Braith. The Eels on the eve of the biggest game for Parramatta in a decade, there has been an internal review into Parramatta which has been leaked, and what it has uncovered is a range of cultural issues at the Eels, the most significant being that there is nepotism in terms of the selection of players and coaches. Now, the Eels are furious that this has been unearthed 24 hours away from kick-off in an elimination final. But the way it's all unfolded is they got Nathan Brown, the ex-Newcastle Warriors and Dragons coach, in to do a review into their elite pathways. Now, what he found was a range of different findings that was then submitted to the Parramatta board on August 31. So the Eels are aware of it. They know what is in that report. We need to point out that this does not relate directly to Brad Arthur and the fact that his son Jake is in their NRL side. Where Nathan Brown has had a look into is the Harold Matthews, the Jersey Flegg and the SG Ball, and that elite pathways area of the Parramatta Eels, which feeds into the NRL club.
It doesn't directly link Brad Arthur and Jacob, but is there an understanding that that is part of it, or is it just the lower grades?
Well, it's their elite pathways, which feeds into the NRL.
Because that's a concern for Parramatta. Look, from my point of view, if it's happening at Jersey Flegg level, I see nepotism and fathers picking their sons at every level of football.
Every level.
And at every club. And at every bush representative team.
In every sport.
In every sport. but the problem for Parramatta comes if it's about Jacob Arthur and Brad Arthur picking him. And if there's senior players at the club or any players in that first grade squad who are unhappy about that. That's where it's an issue. If it's not there, then it's here nor there. But if that's an issue, if it's there.
Yeah, the Eels are at pains to point out that it doesn't relate to that particular situation.
The report didn't actually identify individuals, did it?
It didn't identify individuals, but the fact that that word has been used and it does involve the entire club and it's been presented to the board, for it to be leaked now, it's the worst possible timing. Well, they've got to go and face the Raiders.
What else could it refer to then?
Well, there's some, as Kenty alluded to, like they're throughout junior clubs, maybe they feel that some junior clubs are getting peripheral treatment as opposed to others that, 10 kids from one of the local clubs are playing in mats and ball. I agree with you.
Yeah, they tried to bowl me that flipper too, Mick, but I didn't buy it, right? I know that, and I feel for Nathan Brown, the recently retired coach here, because he's gone and done this work and it wasn't intended to be put into the public domain. It has now.
Well, they've actually whitewashed it a little bit, haven't they, Herbs? They've actually got, there's the
version that I've seen.
There's the raw copy, and then there's a version that's more palatable for a wider readership.
Then there's another version that they gave to some of their sponsors and their key stakeholders.
And they've changed the wording in those reports.
So it also shows us that there's huge fractures at the club, right?
Well, that's the issue.
Well, that's the way that I read between the lines. But there's clearly some blockages in the systems in terms of what's going on at Parramatta.
Which is why they did the report to begin with, right? That's part of the reason why they got Nathan Brown in to undergo the report, because there's been a disconnect between Parramatta's junior grades and the NRL side for far too long, and this is part of the reason. And some of that changes, Nathan Brown will stay on at the Eels.
Right.
He's going to be their coaching director of elite pathways, and they've got James Shepherd, the former Cronulla interim coach who worked at Nathan Brown at the Newcastle Knights, to come on as head of elite pathways. So they are making some changes there, and it's been a problem. There's no doubt the Eels have got their junior development all wrong for a long time now.
Well, we said here last night, though, just talking about Jake Arthur being picked at 14, and went to pains to say that it was the curiosity around that selection was as much about picking a specialist halfback on the bench in case Mitch Moses doesn't get through the game as it was about whether it was the coach's son. Now, a day later, and I understand Hadley's been banging on about this of a morning on radio as well. So it is getting out there. I don't know where it's coming from and who at Parramatta is getting the story out there, but it is getting out there. which, if we start to join the dots, it leads to frustrations within the senior part of the club. And that's going to be the issue. And
well, that's what I can't understand, Kenny. I can't understand how someone from inside the club has leaked this the day before the biggest game of the year.
Self-interest, Braith. Always, when you've got doubts, back self-interest. There'd be someone there who's...
We should point out, aside from the fact that there was a perception of nepotism in the appointment of staff and players, there was also a point that says there needs to be a better connection needed from the NRL to flag and to junior reps. The skill development of players could be better with Eels' philosophy. So there were a variety of different pointed cutting takeouts. And to your point, Braith, the timing of it, it's self-implosion. It's so explosive on the eve of such a big game.
And could you imagine what the reaction's going to be if they get dusted tomorrow night? That's
Going to be a big fallout.
They really should have put a deadline on this for sometime in October.
If there's players within... if there's players... Okay, so if there is unrest, right? You've got Brown that wants to be in the team, unhappy that he's not. There's players in that first grade.
Nathan Brown, not the
the player. And you've got players in this team that are supposedly not happy with some of the selections. The night before the game, this happens, and now they've got to go into that team, onto that field, with the players next to them, not believing entirely on who is going on that field with them, and the team that has been picked by their coach. Now, that to me spells disaster. 24 hours out from their biggest game of the year, and to me, I'd be picking the Raiders.
It's certainly not ideal for the Parramatta.
I've been told that some of the senior players at Parramatta had actually approached Brad Arthur and asked the question about why is Nathan Brown, who I think's on over $500,000 a year at Parramatta and only a couple of seasons ago was playing State of Origin for New South Wales. Why is he not in the team? But Brad Arthur's adamant that hasn't happened and that isn't the case.
You spoke to Brad today, didn't you?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, how was he?
He's all right. He's holding his nerve, considering the circumstances.
Yeah, but
We'll speak to a couple of the other coaches who are involved in the finals later in the program. They've all got their game heads on.
Yeah.
But out of everything that I wrote today, he actually didn't have a beef with anything that was in the report. Where he did have the beef was about that piece of detail about Nathan Brown.
All right, you three got your ear to the ground in our game. Now, tell me this. Are the senior players disagreeing with the selection of Jacob Arthur in this team?
Well, I was told that they were, but Brad has told me that that is not the case.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yeah.
No.
So we're speculating.
I just got a dirty ear out of that when I had my ear to the ground, Brace.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing.